Welcome to Positive Living with Lolo. I'm Lolo, and today I have with me my friend Zade.
What's up?
Zade also goes by Prophet. He is a Cincinnati artist who studied history and political science. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? We're going to talk today about Stoicism, and so he's going to talk about that. But I just found out other things about him too. So I want you to just kind of like give me a little bit about who you are, some of the volunteer work you do, and then we'll get into like the real reason why we're here, which is that Stoicism.
Cool, yeah. So the first thing is that I'm first generation American. Both my parents are Palestinian.
Okay.
My mom, she was born overseas and raised overseas until her and her siblings were all eligible to go out in the world and do their own thing. And my father was born in Kuwait when his mom and dad, my grandparents, immigrated from Palestine to the United States because of the conflict that's going on over there. So that's like, the first like identification thing about myself. The second thing is I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like the second thing in line that like comes with the identity. When I was in 5th grade, backtrack even more. Skateboarding was the first hobby I ever picked up. I was heavily influenced by my older cousins, who lived 5 minutes away from me at the time. 3 siblings. They honestly like influenced me to be like an artist overall, essentially, because like I would always go over to their place and get on their desktop and listen to all their music, and they had like all this stuff that I was like very oppressed to, and when I found out about it, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And same with skateboarding. My older cousin Amira, she lives in California now. Shout out to Amira. She got me a Nintendo 64 for I'm pretty sure it was for my birthday growing up. Got me a Nintendo 64 with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And when I was watching while I was playing and watching, I was like, wow, I want to do this. And moments later, I found out that they were all affiliated with like a group of skateboarders. Three brothers actually used to own a skate shop right in my city, Florence, called Plwl. And that was where I got my first skateboard. But anyways, yeah, skateboarding, first hobby I ever picked up. After that, I remember when I was like in 5th grade, I was just at home with my parents watching TV, and this commercial came on of like these bands and whatnot. I didn't even know what it was for, but I looked at my parents, I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to play guitar. And they were all up for it, because they know how beneficial like music is overall, because it, like essentially, music is like mathematics. When like nature and mathematics collide, essentially, like think about when like trees fall in forests and like they make like like a kick sound, or like something like a bird makes like a chirping sound, a hi-hat. It's like it's just like off sync like sounds that essentially, like if you find the right pitches, mathematics, put them together, that's music. It's crazy. I don't know like why I was so drawn to it, but I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what I like found like the deepest like connection to, other than skateboarding, because skateboarding was the first hobby I picked up. But yeah, music started when I was in 5th grade. I didn't start making music when I was in 5th grade. I just started playing guitar. I loved playing other people's music. That's why I like picked up the guitar in the first place. I just like, it came to a point like later on down the road, as the more I played, I realized like you could play anything on guitar. Like any sound, like any instruments, any choir, any orchestra, any band's gonna make, you can make it on any instrument. Like they all share the same notes and whatnot. And I just at one point I like dipped into rock and roll, and dipped into heavy metal, and dipped into classical music, and dipped back into hip hop and rap, because at one point like hip hop and rap, that's essentially what like sparked my interest in music, because I was listening to this music that I was oppressed to, and then when I found out about it, I was
Who's the first artist?
Eminem was like not the first artist I've ever listened to, but the first artist that really like, I was like, this shit can't be real. like what he's saying and whatnot. Like I was listening to like the first songs like Without Me, like Toy Soldier, Puke, Encore, all of his old stuff that when he was just wilding out, and I was like this stuff. Like if my parents and like or my aunt caught me like listening to this stuff, they'd smack the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
And so that's what really like sparked like, you know, because like I was like, damn, like, you know, it's essential because, and this is what, you know, this relates back to what we're going to talk about soon, is like, you know, breaking out of like a cage, breaking out of like the oppression that you like are in this life, is like, you know, when you find these things that like kind of like, you know, make you feel something, like either uncomfortability or like anxiety or something. It's like it's breaking you out of your cage, and like people think it's a bad thing, but really it's an amazing thing.
Right.
But yeah, so like Eminem, first artist that like got me like, you know, wanting to like, you know, explore music and what it could be. But then I like drifted away from that when I started playing guitar, because Guitar Hero was what really like, and my same cousins that got me into skateboarding were the ones that got me into Guitar Hero, because they had it one day and I was like, what is this? It was crazy. I would go over every day just aching to play. I was like, Guitar Hero, Guitar Hero, Guitar Hero. And got to that point where I was like, oh, I'm gonna play guitar.
Yeah.
And when one day, when I started when I started playing Guitar Hero, one day cousins from out of town were over at my place, family just shooting the shit and whatnot, and I'm talking about Guitar Hero with my cousin, and my dad and my aunt and a few of my other older cousins are sitting outside and we're talking about it, and I'm like bringing up these bands and whatnot, and my dad's like looking at me, he's like, what are these bands you're talking about? And I named one of them, and one of them is Van Halen, and my dad like flipped out. He was like, oh, you figured out what Van Halen is? I didn't expect you to do that. And I was like, that's like one of the bands he loved growing up, like listening to, just because the guitar player, Eddie Van Halen, like he fucking shreds on the guitar. Like probably still greatest guitar player of all time. I'm surprised he's honestly not dead yet, to be honest, but no, like he's like pioneer in what guitar playing can be in these days. And that like really like, you know, brought my interest in wanting to explore like guitar playing on that level, like hard rock, like fast notes, a lot of distortion, a lot of like, you know, just, you know, playing things that normally can't be played on a guitar, just like on like an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
But like it would be that point where I, you know, start dabbling more into like folky songwriter stuff too. Like I love listening to Brandy Carlisle. She's incredible.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
You don't know who that is? Oh my gosh, she's pretty big now, to be honest. She's a country artist. There's this one song called The Eye. If you ever get a chance, you should listen to it. The harmonies in that song are amazing.
Okay.
But yeah, like going on this rant about just me as an artist, that's like what defines me too. Like I can say with 100% like what's the word I'm looking for? Confidence. 100% confidence that I am an artist.
Okay.
I mean, there's art in basically anything.
Right.
Like there's a technique to everything where you can like master it to where you can say it's an art form. Like whether that be like chemistry or like being a doctor, or even like being a lawyer, like being like, you know, anything.
Right.
But in regards to like art making, like music, visual art, performing arts, that's what we want. Because I ended up, you know, dabbling into like theater, and I was in this program in high school called speech and drama, where I'd go to these competitions on every Saturday around the state of Kentucky, just like doing these like performances, but they weren't like, it's not like, you know, performing on stage like theater performances, and it's not like acting. Essentially you're put in like what they call an event, and an event can either be like a humorous like type of performance, they call it a humorous interpretation, or a dramatic interpretation, or a duo performance where it's two people up there, and it's usually like the performance is in like a classroom. These competitions are held at schools.
Okay.
And you know, you usually get put in like what your personality essentially showed off. Like if you were a funny guy, you're doing humor stuff. If you were like more like dramatic and like, you know, kind of like edgy, be like a dramatic, and if you worked well with someone, you do duo.
Right.
If you were good at thinking about stuff right off the bat, you were put in this event called improvisational duo, where you and your partner would be given a subject or a situation by the judge off the hand. You got like 5 minutes to prep with your partner.
Okay.
Quiet, and then you just go off the bat.
Yeah.
And I did stuff, and there's other events called like poetry, where like you think of like a certain like, you know, topic or a certain overall like meaning to something in life, and you gather up these poems written by different poets, and the one that I did at my senior year that got me a few awards was a poetry program on being racially ambiguous, because, you know, I'm first generation Palestinian American, but I get mistaken for being Latino, mixed, Israeli, Italian.
I would have guessed like Arabian or something.
Yeah, like, you know, there's a lot of different, you know, cultures and ethnicities that
Right.
people mistake me for.
Right.
So I gathered up these poems of like, you know, one of them being like first generation like Arab American, one of them being like a first generation Israeli Jew, one of them being an African American, and just all these different cultures. And, you know, the overall meaning of these poems were like, you know, don't ask me like, you know, what are you, just, you know, let it be. Like, don't put me in this box of like trying to figure out who I am.
Right.
So yeah, that specific like speech and drama, like that thing that I was doing, like essentially, you know, broke me out of that cage of having a fear of speaking in front of people and you know, performing in front of people, essentially. Because like at one point, like I would get really, like growing up, I would get really anxious and really nervous being in front of people to talk. But now, you put me on the stage in like US Bank Arena, I wouldn't feel a thing. But yeah, like, and while all that was going on too, I was also like dabbling into photography as well. Like I was in my high school's first ever advanced placement photography class, and I ended up getting a perfect score at the very end of it for my portfolio. Ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Louisville for it. But the passion of that died out.
Yeah.
Passion of that died out when I found out that I was gonna start making music, which was in like late 2015. It wasn't that like, you know, I just forgot about photography. It was essentially, you know, the next chapter. Like I still love taking photos. I still love the, you know, looking at photos. I still like, I can tell you what cameras do. I know about photography, but you know, that doesn't mean that I've just completely like dismissed it. I just found a new outlet, which is the music making, which didn't come until like I started going through this shit, and like it was all about a girl.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. It's fucking, yeah, that essentially like sparked like making music. But before then, like before like late 2015, it was strictly just like studying other people's music.
Yeah.
Like, all the time. Like whether I was like performing like these medleys on stage with like choir groups, or like joining these a cappella groups and whatnot. And it was best times. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. So now what are you currently doing music-wise? Like, is there anything that people can expect from you, or any shows or anything like that coming up, so they can actually see you perform, or they see you speak, or?
I usually just do open mics Monday, Tuesday nights.
Okay.
Monday nights whenever I can get off work, which I usually can. But yeah, usually open mics either at Comet or at the Mockbee.
Okay.
Haven't done Mockbee yet. I'm usually at the Comet, but I want to do Mockbee soon. And then Tuesday night at Motor. That's where I'm usually at. I've been talking to a lot of people, trying to like make these connections with people who, you know, put the shows on and can do that, because I just want to perform like just a full set, like in front of a crowd. And so I've been, you know, trying to make these connections, and they want to put me on too, but like, you know, timing is like everything. So like they're doing their stuff right now, so I'm going with their time.
Right.
But I just put in a compilation album out on all streaming services.
Okay.
Titled The Progression. It's a bunch of songs throughout that I made throughout like the times of 2016 through 2018, and compiled into one 15 long track album on all streaming services.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So download that.
Download it.
I'm excited to hear it. I'll definitely download it
Hell yeah.
after this. So, I also know you volunteer, so tell me a little bit about that.
I volunteer for this organization called the World Affairs Council. It's a international organization, but each individual city has their own branch. Cincinnati / Northern Kentucky branch is what I volunteer for, obviously, because we live here.
Yeah.
And it's basically an organization that gets the community more involved with understanding the world more and understanding different cultures more. They usually have diplomats come and speak, people from different countries who have a large role within the society, whether it be a doctor or an ambassador or a government official. And they also get involved with the community in other ways, as in myself, where I do volunteer work in a sense of I go to high schools and middle schools speaking on education and my background and whatnot, and essentially opening up these kids' minds.
Yeah.
The volunteer position is called being a global guide. The first high school that I went and spoke to was Winton Woods High School. I spoke to 2 classrooms about being Palestinian and Palestine in general, with Israel and the conflict. So that's the volunteer work I've been continuing doing. There's other volunteer work I used to do in the past too. When I was in college, I volunteered for 2 campaigns. One of them was the Tamai Denard City Council in Cincinnati, and the other one was Judge Marilyn Zayas for Hamilton County Court of Appeals. Both those races won, by the way,
Awesome.
which I'm very proud of. And yeah, I really support volunteer work because it essentially makes you a more productive human, because you're getting a different type of a currency back,
Right.
like you're a different type of
Yes.
What's it called, compensation back,
Right.
essentially. And it's like making connections or like actually impacting people's lives and
Right.
whatnot. It's like people just they just see money sometimes, and it's like
Yeah.
that's their only form of currency that they want, and it's like, no, that doesn't have to be that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the volunteer work I've partook in the
That's
past.
awesome. And with volunteer work too, you learn and get so much for yourself too. Like
Oh, yeah.
you learn so much about yourself. Like I'm sure there's classrooms that you walked into and you've learned something that you would have never guessed you learned because you've
Yeah.
talked to these kids already.
Oh yeah,
So you just get a lot in return for yourself.
no doubt.
So let's talk a little bit about Stoicism.
Yeah.
And so first, like, let's start. Where did it come from? Like, what's the time frame? What does Stoicism? What does the word mean?
So, Stoicism, I haven't done too much studying about it recently, but I'll tell you what I know. Stoicism can't tell you exactly when it started. I can tell you it started before the Common Era. Before the Common Era, it's known as BCE. A lot of scholars and historians have been trying to, switch the idea of calling it just BC, like before Christ, to before the Common Era, because it's not only about the Christian religion.
Right.
So
I like that.
People,
Never heard that.
yeah, people title it now BCE for before the Common Era, and then after that, what people consider AD is CE, just Common Era. 2000, now we're 2019 CE. But Stoicism dates back to before the Common Era, during the times of the Roman Empire. A few individuals who were considered Stoics, Marcus, or I forgot how to pronounce his last name, I should have found out, but he was the Roman emperor at one point. He writes the book, The Meditations. I don't know if you've seen it before. Really popular book. A lot of people have it, but a lot of the wrong people have it.
Yeah.
My favorite Stoic, his name was Marcus Cicero. He was a government official in the Roman Empire. But his writings were very impactful, almost as impactful as Aristotle's. A lot of people just, in these, a lot of political scientists strictly just focus on Aristotle for some reason, when they should be focusing on a lot more during his time, which Marcus Cicero was one. Another individual, his name is Epictetus. He I think he was before the Common Era. I can't tell you exactly. There's a book written by a Stoic of this time. His name's Ryan Holiday. He writes The Daily Stoic, and it's just 366 pages of Stoic advice, which, you know, I'll talk about that later on. But yeah, it's essentially like when someone is Stoic, it's overcoming pain and agony, whether it be mental or physical, you know, just coping with it essentially. And Stoicism itself, you know, has evolved so much throughout time. Like at this point, before the Common Era, when these people like Marcus Cicero and Epictetus were taking part in it, it was considered a religion. Religion that they essentially, you know, coped with, like, you know, people around them dying, or like the conflicts that were going on, or the daily struggles that were going on in their lives. It's, you know, when you kind of think about it, in a sense, like Stoics, they, you know, like I said, try to overcome pain and agony. And it's really a lot of like self-realization type of, you know, work, where, you know, you find out what really bothers you and what really brings you like harm and whatnot, and you know, trying to understand, you know, those feelings are real, because you know, good and bad are in everyone's lives. No one lives a full life of happiness. No one lives a full life of sadness. Even the, you know, the mentally depressed, you can make them laugh. Yeah. Even for that split second, that's still a little time that they forgot about it, and you know, but still, even the most happy person, they're gonna have these barriers in their life.
Right. And
it's like, it's just understanding that, you know, when the barriers come, how are you gonna cope with it? Are you gonna be someone who drinks to get rid of the pain? Are you gonna be someone who gambles to get rid of the pain? Are you gonna be someone who, you know, just freaks out all the time and just cries all the time, or ends up being suicidal about it? Because, you know, it's that point where, you know, the main core of it is being rational. Right. I mean, that's a hard thing, obviously, because humans are very passionate creatures, and, you know, that it all dates back, you know, to that time, because it has to do with like, you know, what are we like outside of civil society, where like, you know, we can't communicate like this, and like, what would we be like? Would we be like just these other animals like lions, tigers, and bears, or, you know, would we be welcoming to each other? Would we want to start like a community and whatnot? But anyways, the whole rationality idea is like, you know, like trying to figure out ways where you are overcoming this pain and agony, to where it's not harming you and it's not harming others around you. And one of the like main things that I actually recently just like realized, like, you know, take the idea of the three monotheistic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. What's one thing they all have in common?
I don't know.
Faith. They all.
Oh, I guess.
They all
believe in something.
They all, you know, everyone that claims either one of those religions at some point in their life has brought up the idea of, oh, my God has my life planned out for me already and whatnot. Yet these are the same type of people that believe in accidents and whatnot, and believe in, like, you know, things that, like, you know, like questioning their faith and whatnot. Right. And it's like, you know, that's one thing, you know, that I've tried to take Stoicism to, is like, I don't believe in accidents. I've always just woken up trying to like stay with the idea that everything happens for a reason. Right. Whether my parents just die all of a sudden, my siblings just die all of a sudden, whether we're just all done right now, whether just like whether I lose my job, my career, anything, like I just try to keep that mindset. You just try to always look at like the brighter side, because it goes back to that duality. Everyone has good and bad. There is always a brighter side, even if, you know, something horrible has happened. Right. And it's like we've put that stigma on it too, is like these like horrible things. Like, why is death a horrible stigma? You like Harry Potter? Yeah. You remember what Albus Dumbledore said in the first one? Death is but just the next great adventure. He said that in the second one, I think. The first one or the second one. And it is. We don't know what the next life is. We don't know what the life like is.
I know, and what's so crazy is death is the only thing that we're guaranteed in this lifetime. The only thing, and it's the only thing that we all fear, like seriously fear and have anxiety and cry and freak out about. It's crazy. Like, it's the one thing we should embrace and be excited about, I would think, right? But it's still hard as a human for something that you don't understand in a day where we feel like we have to understand something.
Right.
Which we have to have an understanding for everything in life, which is why I think religion exists, is to try to have an understanding of things that we don't.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's true. And, and one thing, it all comes down to is just like, it's never the religion. It's never the thing. It's never the idea or the inanimate object that's there. It's always the person. There's always those type of people that either make one thing a good name or a bad name. You'll have the people who are good Christians, you'll have the people who are bad Christians, you'll have the people who are good Muslims, bad Muslims, good black people, bad black people, good white people, bad white people. There's good and bad everywhere. That's what people don't understand. They keep labeling, like, a lot of people just around the three universal laws that apply to each and every human, that no one can get away from it. No one can get away from it. Past, present, future, everyone goes through this. It's, life and death. Everyone goes through it. Like, we're all born. We all have a death date. And, death can be categorized into two different kinds of deaths: the quick death and long, not the long death, but the death we are expecting. The unexpected death, the expected death. Like, expected death, people who are old, people who are sick, like terminally ill. Then the unexpected death, like, maybe heart attack, gunshot, lost at sea. Lost at sea, what am I saying? But yeah, just like the unexpected death that, we couldn't get our last moments. And that is a hard thing to deal with, because, we love people, and, we wanna make sure they know we love them.
Right.
We don't want to see them go in a way of agony, like they thought we didn't love them or whatnot. So it's just important to just always expect the unexpected, and always just whoever you love, just make sure you tell you love them every day. So yeah, life and death, everyone goes through it. The second, everyone has good and bad. Like I said, you could be the most powerful human in the world, the most rich human in the world. You're gonna have good and bad.
Right.
You could be a boy in the Philippines, waking up at dawn every morning to help his father on a harbor until dusk every day. You're still gonna be good and bad. You're still gonna feel good and bad within you. You're still gonna have good and bad around you. Right. Same with the people who are labeled as clinically depressed. There's still gonna be times they smile. There's still gonna be times they laugh.
Right.
And if they don't, then there comes that point, obviously, where suicide. Yeah, but that's when that passion takes completely over, that negative passion. That's why that happens. Good and bad. That's number 2. Number 3, there's you, the bubble around you that no one can, this is yours. Your temple, your body, your physical organic structure right now that only you know of.
Right.
And then there's the world around you.
Right.
Neither you or the world owe anything to either.
Right. That's
not to say that you can't give to either. You can be a good person and give to the world like that. You could be a bad person from the world and not owe anything to it. The world doesn't owe you anything, but it can still show you a lot of love.
Right.
Like, example for families. Families are either there for each other, they're either not there for each other. Leaders or people who stand with a certain political party, when they get so riled up or upset because a certain policy isn't in motion or a certain leader isn't in office.
Right.
It's the world doesn't owe you a leader in office. The world doesn't owe you anything.
Right.
The world will give you what you give it. That's what I believe.
Right.
That's not that. A lot of people can disregard that. The world will give you what you give it. But essentially, at the end of the day, the world doesn't owe you anything, and you don't owe anything to it. I could go right now and jump on a train and go train hopping and leave.
Right.
Not give a care about anything that I left.
Right.
I'm not gonna do that, obviously.
Right.
That would. I mean, if I warned my family and was like, "Hey, I'm going on this trip. I'll be back."
Right.
But if I was just one of those people that just cut everyone off, just was like that, then no, the world's not gonna be with me if I'm not with it.
Right.
And you notice how all 3 of these laws can be put on a balance beam.
Right.
Good and bad.
Right.
Life and death.
Right.
You and the world.
Right.
It's all about balance.
Right.
It's all about that. And that's rooted in also that's rooted in a lot of the whole like zodiac stuff and whatnot, like the yin and yang, the Ouroboros, like the what are they called? Alchemists. Have you ever read the book The Alchemist?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh my gosh, that book's really trendy. But it's a very enlightening book. People who read it are obsessed over it just because of the messages it brings out. And essentially the messages we're talking about just, in a fiction book form.
Okay.
But in the study of alchemy, that's what the yin and yang is also all about, that balance, finding that. So yeah, that's one thing that I always try to I don't stress that on people, but when people want to learn about this more, I tell them about these universal laws, and it really puts their lives in perspective of these things are real, they are going to happen to me, that is what life is. Is finding that balance and knowing what I tell people, think positively with humbleness and expect negativity with bravery. That's that way, that mindset should be applied to these universal laws. That's how it should be.
Right. I like that. It prepares you. You really can't be prepared for real.
You can't, no, because another thing is you have people. It's good to have goals. It's important to have goals. It's important to stay productive. Side note from that, real quick. One thing I strongly believe in is not living a long life, living a productive life. Because you shouldn't want to live a long life. You shouldn't want to stay oh, I just want to live forever. I don't want to die. No, that is gonna happen. It's gonna come to you.
Right.
We all have a day. Stay productive.
Right.
Stay motivated.
Right.
Don't let don't let anything you can control end up getting out of your control.
Right.
And letting it take over your life, like you're lost or you're stuck somewhere.
Right.
It's always important to just keep going,
Right.
especially when those barriers come.
Right.
So yeah.
It's just crazy to think about how opposite things can be, and but once you hit that level of understanding that bad is always going to come, that it's temporary, how much easier it becomes to just get out of it.
Right, yeah, exactly. And you said how opposite things can be, I told hold that thought real quick. You can it's important to have goals.
Right.
But it's important to understand that your goals can flip on you. Can do that 180 degree twist. You can wake up and then try to start your car and it might not work.
Right.
Or car starts, you make it to work, you get laid off.
Right.
Or start your car, go to work, something bad happens, where you break a leg, something like that.
Right.
Or you go to work, everything's okay, you go back home, traffic, you just get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Anything
Right.
can happen. That's just putting it in that perspective of someone's daily life that. But essentially we're all battling with something every day. There's all either on the a minimum scale, it might be oh, I not like this thing on Instagram, oh, someone's doing this to me, or dealing with something that's actually a barrier.
Right.
Someone who has died in your family unexpectedly, or so things, because there are things that really test our patience.
Right.
It's all about that patience too.
Right.
It's are you just gonna not be patient and just try and have everything in your control? Or are you just gonna sometimes just take a step back, look at what's really going on, and actually reflect on yourself and what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about your family hosting.
Oh yeah. And that's that's another thing that when it comes to this idea of Stoicism is a lot of a lot of scholars, some group of scholars, a lot of people look at it it's comes from a very privileged thing. The people who write about it, they're the ones who have it good, able to write about it, able to spread it, like able to live like, you know, a decent life.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta realize they still go through like barriers.
Right.
But like these, like some people think that like, oh, like Stoicism, like that's why we have like revolution, like these very passionate people that just want to like go and like really change things and like like actually like try and change the uncontrollable.
Right.
Or like these people who go and shoot up schools, or like go and like cause terror, like cause tyranny, essentially. Anything like that, like corruption and whatnot.
Right.
Like, it's like it's just like I think it's. I don't know. It's like I met this boy who essentially like he comes from very oppressed people.
Right.
Like he just like he made me smile so much, and yet like so the story goes he was at the border of Gaza in Israel, and I'll touch on, you know, the whole overall picture of what like the conflict is like over there. And so boy in Gaza, he's Palestinian, boy's Palestinian. He's at the border aiding protesters because there's always protests going on. All of a sudden, Israeli sniper shoots him in the leg. Lost it. All the way to the top. And there's this organization called the PCRF, Palestine Children's Research Fund. They aid people in Palestine, all over the Middle East essentially, who, you know, are traumatized by conflict, whether it be a gunshot wound or like mental illness or anything like that. And he was one of the boys who was picked to come to the United States to have a prosthetic surgery done on him. And he stayed with a host family in Dayton, but sometimes he was allowed to, like, you know, stay with other families, and in this case ours. So we got to know him, we like took him around our city and like, you know, showed him a good time and whatnot. But like this boy, like he's just, you know, the spirit's like still high. Like he was still like, he was still happy, still a genuine human, and yet he lost his leg. Like, and you have these people here around us that like get so upset and put themselves in a stuck situation because they're upset about something. And it's like there's these people in the world who are getting bombs thrown at them and getting shot at, and they're still alive. Like, it's one thing to get shot and die, like you're dead, you don't have to worry about it, but getting shot and living, like, and being able to cope with it. Like, you know, people like it's not bad to question things, obviously, but what is bad is to, like, you know, think that you like are more like, you know, fit to do something because, you know, things aren't going your way, and it's like that passion within you is like, no, I want things to go my way. And it's like, well, guess what? It's not always gonna be your way. That's the thing. Like, and like people, it's super important that like when things aren't going your way, you stay patient, you stay rational, because it's only temporary.
Right.
I mean, same as the good things too, which is why you should cherish the good things and really take advantage of that moment, and like you smiling and having a good moment, because it is temporary. It's not gonna last.
Right.
And you can find good moments after that too, but that's not to say that bad moments aren't going to come.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So what's some advice you want to give to people on just their everyday life of, you know, one, obviously research Stoicism.
Yeah, for people who want to look up Stoicism, I mean, the first thing to do is like, you know, I know it was hard to like, you know, get a grasp on it from like what the internet was telling you, but like, if you just like, you don't have to go like search for like, you know, Stoic like advice online, more as like go like online searching for like where to find the Stoic advice. Like there's plenty of books out there. Many people have written about Stoicism. I mentioned that one book earlier titled The Daily Stoic. It's 366 pages of advice from Stoics in the past who, you know, have like quotes or whatnot, and then the quotes will be like dissected into like, you know, what the actual meaning of it is for like people to understand it better and whatnot. And another thing would be is like, you know, there's there's plenty of YouTube videos out there too. People can like, you know, watch and like getting a good grasp of like, you know, how Stoics behave and how Stoicism has essentially like evolved over time, because that's another thing about it is like a lot of people don't understand is like things change. Like change is constantly going around, whether you believe it or not. Like evolution, not just in like, you know, believing like we came from apes, like evolution of everything is a real thing. Like the evolution of, you know, the deterioration of like a village or like a country, or the evolution of like one's self-realization, or like the evolution that, you know, of our physical bodies that are gonna die and be cremated and whatnot. There's constant change, and you know, when it comes down to it, like it's important to understand like, you know, change is good. Change is not what like we should be afraid of. Like it's important to understand that change and know that it's a real thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's just a few advice I have, like looking that up. You know, there's Stoicism like in like pop culture too. Like how I mentioned to you how like, you know, in Star Wars, the Jedi, they're considered Stoics because like they're selfless and they only care about others and like they want good for the world and whatnot. Same with like, you know, that TV show Grey's Anatomy. Like there's the main protagonist. She's like considered a Stoic, and even in one episode she brings up like we've got to be Stoic, and it's like, oh, that's yeah. I wish people like actually took that more in consideration when they were watching this show instead of just like the drama that goes on.
Right.
But yeah, like whenever people like whenever you watch something like that really speaks about the things that like we've touched on in this episode, like really take a moment and like understand that like, yeah, like you're gonna see that a lot, like whether it be in movies, music, TV shows, your life. Like you gotta understand that like, you know, the things that go on are real.
Right.
And you like just being able to cope with them is a blessing.
Yeah. What other pieces of advice? You have any quotes for us?
Quotes? Like I said before, think positively. With, you know, being humble. Think positively, be humble. Expect negativity, but with bravery.
Right.
That's how everyone should wake up feeling. Like, I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna be cool about it. I'm not gonna let my ego get in the way. And when the barriers come, I'm gonna tackle them head on. And like, you know, just be happy and be good. Find your happiness. Because at the end of the day, you're not gonna please everyone.
Right.
You have to like, and if you're not pleasing yourself, no one's gonna come and please you. That's 100% guaranteed. Like what type of person wants to hang out with someone who just looks like trash, lets their environment be trash? That's not someone I want to be around. That's not a good person. They're letting their life deteriorate before their eyes, and they're not even doing anything at it. They're letting death come at a rate that, you know, shouldn't be coming at.
Right.
Like, they have the ability to overcome it.
Right.
But it's, you know, it's not. And
right.
That's what it comes down to, is like understanding that you aren't gonna please everyone, and when it comes to the people that you can please them all you want. And you know, don't expect anything in return for them, because you know the things you do, it essentially it comes back. It's like karma. Like the people who really like question karma, I'm like, so you're telling me that if you don't do anything bad, that bad's not gonna come to you? That's false, because bad comes to everyone. Like no, you got like, and it's the same thing vice versa. Like, oh, I'm gonna like, you think because you do bad things, like good things are gonna come to you, or like bad things are gonna come to you? Like, no, you can't put this sort of like prediction on those things. Right. Like you can put predictions on artificial stuff that go on within the world, but you can't put predictions on, you know, who you are and what your life is gonna go through, because you have no idea what to expect in this life.
Right. I like that. That was good. So if any of you guys want to talk to either one of us about, you know, positive living, for me right now, for him it's like Stoicism, and like his is a way deeper. Like he can relate to people who have dealt with a different kind of oppression, and you can relate to people like being first generation American and things that I can't relate to because of privilege, honestly. So I think that that's really cool. People can definitely reach out to you, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
And tell them where they can reach out to you at.
You can find me if you go on Google and you type in Prophet, spelled Prawfit. You're bound to find me. You can type that in on Instagram too and Facebook, and you can find my music everywhere. Just type in that name as well.
Yeah, and what was your latest album called again?
It's a compilation album titled The Progression Volume 1, 15 tracks.
Perfect.
All bangers.
Awesome. I'm excited about it. I really, really, really appreciate you coming.
I appreciate you having me.
This episode has been really interesting. The process of filming this.
It's been a hassle, but we got through it. We're getting through it.
We got through it. We are getting through it. I feel like it's been crazy because things with Positive Living with Lola have definitely been difficult lately. And there's a lot of like obstacles that are jumping in front of me, like with the people that I've been talking to, but I feel like we're hitting really, really good subjects that are meaningful, and I feel like when you do that, like that's when the enemy kind of steps in and is like, I don't really want you to I don't really want you to spread these good messages and stuff. So even with everything, I'm really thankful that you've been patient and you know, understanding of the problems we've been seeing and stuff today. So I'm really excited to put this episode out. I'm excited to meet you and have like a relationship now where I feel like we're gonna be in each other's lives for a long time, so I'm excited.
Hell yeah.
So thank you so much for coming.
For sure.
Alright, peace out guys.